Yes, the Npa mess is almost assuming catastrophic proportions. Look at the numbers. The total gross NPAs, or loans that will not be paid back, recognized by banks in the third quarter, the just ended quarter, was 4.4 lakh crore. That is 50% higher than what it was 1 year ago. As well, all the public sector banks put together reported losses of 11,000 crore as of the third quarter ending, versus profit of 33,600 crore year ago. So is this mess now reaching a stage where it can incapacitate banks? That question was thrown up in very sharp relief by Mr. Deepak Parekh when he spoke recently. First, let's listen to Deepak Parekh and then discuss that issue.
I absolutely do not wish to second guess the regulators, and I do not at all doubt their competence or their wisdom in assessment of the situation. I still wish to say, caution, that too much of anesthesia can result in a patient being comatose. Surely the objective of the cleanup is to fix the financial problem, not to incapacitate the banks. The banking sector cannot afford another quarter like the one just gone by. But banks have already warned that the next quarter also looks this one.
Okay, those are strong words. Will this cleanup incapacitate banks? That is the charge that Mr. Deepak Parekh is making. And to discuss both the implications of the cleanup as well as the way out, I have with me a very, very eminent panel. I have Mr. Pratip Chaudhari, former chairman of State Bank of India, Mr. Umarji, former legal advisor to the IBA, and more importantly, the author of the bankruptcy code. He was a member of that committee. And Rajat, Bahl, director at CRISIL Ratings, looks at banks very closely for CRISIL. Gentlemen, welcome. Well, first up to you, Mr. Pratip Chaudhari, since you know where the shoe bites. Is it as strong as this? Is this cleanup, of which at the moment says that NPAs are about 7% of total assets, may go up to 10% of total assets, will it really incapacitate banks?
Actually, we should look at the situation more objectively. NPA definition is very clear. It is a globally accepted definition that if a company or a person or an individual, whatever, cannot service the interest for 90 days, that is non-performing. And even if this can't service the principal continuously for 90 days, that is non-performing.
Yeah.
So I think there is no running away from the definition and recognition. But where this problem has happened, and Mr. Deepak Parekh said, that it happened all of a sudden. Now, had it is like, a person ailing for some time, you neglect, then last moment you take him to the hospital, and the hospital said, oh God, why didn't you come earlier? So I think RBI has been extremely slow in recognizing the problem. This problem would not have hit us in face like this if RBI had been more proactive, and it is not just a hands-off, it had been more hands-on and trying to make sure that the banks make normal and appropriate provision. Because in SBI I found that we were making more aggressive provisioning, and our shareholder and analysts would say, look here, this account is not an NPA in XYZ bank. Why do you have to be this holier than thou and make provisioning? So it was very difficult to answer to my shareholders and to the analysts. So I think RBI should have moved much earlier, 2 or 3 years back, towards a uniform provisioning across banks for accounts. Now most of the accounts are in consortium, there are multiple lenders. Now how can it be that it is standard in one place, and standard substandard is one level of differentiation, even provisioning. Account is 15% provision somewhere. So RBI should have moved. Yes.
No, I take a point, Mr. Pratip Chaudhari. You're laying the blame at the door of the Reserve Bank. I will, time permitting, come to that in a bit. But my bigger problem is, the question I'm trying to ask is, first of all, is it going to be that debilitating if capital is given, and if there is some reform like the Bank Boards Bureau and others contemplated, then do you think that this is such a serious problem. I'm also asking this question because even for instance in Europe, the total amount of bad loans is 7.3% of the GDP. In our case, recognized NPLs are at the moment about 3.5% of GDP, so we still have a distance to go. Rajat, that is the question. Is this a question of incapacity really if the capital is provided?
I think it's a question of whether capital will solve all the problems. As Mr. Chaudhary was mentioning, that this problem has been brewing for a while, and so while I don't agree that whether this kind of an action could have been done earlier, I think there were things that were tried. There were multiple tools that were provided by RBI to try and revive some of these corporates, including restructuring or 525 STR. Multiple methods have been tried. At the end of which we've come to this stage where they've had to take this sort of an action, which looks like a knee-jerk reaction, but probably there was nothing better that was left but to now recognize that the stress is high. Capital, will it solve the problem? To a large extent, yes. But the bigger challenge that also exists along with the capital, that's at least the public sector banks where they're falling short in capital, is also the assets that they have now recognized as NPAs. What happens to these assets? These, as Mr. Parekh also has been mentioning, they will have an impact because especially public sector banks are very wary of further lending to any asset that's now been classified as NPA. So that impact will be there on these assets, and a lot of these companies are companies that are struggling because of availability of capital, working capital in particular. And if you at this point pull the plug, things could get even worse, and we are not seeing too much improvement on the economy to help use that as a twig to pull them out of this mess. So I think while
Rajat, I take your point. You're saying that the borrowers who don't get money will be incapacitated if banks don't give money, but my charge is haven't banks been putting good money after bad? The banking sector is well represented here by Mr. Chaudhary. So let me also give the regulator's point of view. The regulator also did not have an idea of which borrower is defaulting with which bank and not with another bank till the central repository was set up. It was announced when the new governor took over in September 2013, notified in February 2014. Banks were arm-twisted, even penalized if they didn't give the data. And it may have taken 3 or 4 quarters to get a bird's eye view of how NPLs are across banks. And, as Rajat has been saying, enough weapons were given to the banks in that 1 year to refinance or to put the promoters on notice. But, the banks didn't do much in terms of arm-twisting promoters. Mr. Umarji, let me get you there. If you're apportioning blame for the NPA mess, look at the data we have. For instance, banks look like clearly have been evergreening. For the Adani Group, the loans, the gross debt in FY14 was 84,000 crores. It becomes 96,000 crores in FY15. For SR Group, it was 99,000 crores. It becomes 1 lakh crore in FY15. GMR Group, FY14, the loans are 45,000 crores. In FY15, it is 48,000 crores. GVK, it goes from 31,000 crores to 34,000 crores. So clearly, banks appear to have been putting good money after bad instead of pulling the plug on those who are not paying. Shouldn't banks be blamed for not cleaning up the mess early?
See, you have to see the cause for the problem faced by the companies also. One of the major cause is downturn in the economy, and the other cause is that the infrastructure projects for which finance has been given have been stuck up because clearances from the environmental clearances and land acquisitions and some such other problems are there by which the projects are not going ahead further. And there is an inability to service the loans which have been taken. Now, when such a situation is arising, banks have no option but to keep the needs of the industry being met from time to time. And it is this hype which is created about so much NPAs and a sudden spurt of levels of NPA going up and all that is going to create a further problem for these industries because there will be a reluctance to lend to these new such accounts on the part of the public sector banks on account of CBI, CBC questioning the second guessing the decisions of the lenders and starting investigations and inquiries into the credit decisions taken by the banks. So this is not only going to, particularly in regard to cases which are viable and which can turn around by giving further finance, will be stuck up. And if no finance is given, there will be a problem faced by these such industries, and it will worsen the problem than what it is today.
Yep. Well, that's exactly what Rajat also has been saying, that more than the banks, you have to worry about the industries which will now be starved of capital. Well, the point is the industries also made very bad decisions. The promoters also made very bad decisions, though I take your point that a large part of it is also because of a slowdown that no one expected and perhaps government intransigence which they did not budget. Okay, we will continue with this blame apportioning, but we need to take a short break. Back in a minute.